It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics. We are the show! You want to know? It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks. All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central, day after the inauguration. January 21st, it's just over 24 hours since President Donald J. Trump was sworn in as the president, his second term, non-consecutive term. First time in over 100 years. We'd have to go back to the late 1800s in Harding. And it was quite a day, right? It certainly moved along. Let's do some housekeeping. You can join the conversation over the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Our text line is up and running, 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. And when you text, it appears on the screen here in the studio, and we try to work it into the conversation, and you can participate that way. I'm broadcasting from the Cameo Studios. I do stream the show on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile. We also are streaming always live to our Rumble page, the Joe Mangiacotti Show Rumble page. You can check that out. It is always then turned around and loaded up to Twitch TV and AUN TV networks. So you can watch it after the fact. But don't forget, the WCRN does stream our station 24/7, as do thousands of other radio stations. So if you go to the TuneIn app, punch in WCRN, you'll find us there. Very easy. Do me a favor, when you hit the WCRN, you'll see our logo. Hit the like button. We know you're there. And then we're very easy to find. And we do have that fantastic replay link on our WCRNradio.com. So once the show ends, you can look it up by either the host or the time that the show's on. And as soon as we're off the air, you can listen to it. A complete MP3 file of it is right there ready for playback. You can even download it and listen to your device later on. I know, it's really cool. So day two, first full day of the second Trump administration. And I got to tell you, there's just some buzz, right? The airwaves are a buzz. The echoes of history being made once again. Trump stood in the rotunda of the Capitol, and that hasn't happened since Ronald Reagan. They moved it indoor because of the extremely cold temperatures. So this is his second inauguration as president of the United States, returning to the Oval Office with 4 years of reflection, strategy, and determination. He played a lot of golf, no question about it, but he had a lot to sit on, a lot to think about. A lot of planning could be done. And this is not the Trump of 2017, the real estate mogul turned president who was learning the ropes of Washington while defying its norms. No, this is a seasoned statesman now with a comprehensive understanding of the mechanisms of power, and he's poised to implement a sweeping agenda amid squarely at reshaping America's future. And there's a lot of reshaping we were in need of. No question about it. Let's talk a little bit about what unfolded yesterday. You're welcome to join the conversation at 508-871-7000 with your observations, with your comments. What you thought, what you felt. What do you think has to happen now? But as everything was unfolding yesterday, it was a whirlwind of executive orders that marked the beginning of what Trump has called America First Restoration and the beginning of the Golden Age. Now, in his inaugural address, President Trump promised bold, immediate action, and he delivered. Before the inaugural luncheon, he signed orders appointing key officials to acting roles in defense, homeland security, health, and other vital departments. This rapid fire staffing It moves to ensure that his administration is completely operational from day one, bypassing Senate delays while awaiting formal confirmations. Although Secretary Rubio, first official cabinet member to be confirmed and sworn in. But immigration, that is the key topic for this administration. Immigration remains Trump's signature issue. Among his first orders was a move to end birthright citizenship, an action certain to ignite legal battles, but reflective of his commitment to tighten immigration laws. He also declared a national emergency at the southern border. This is paving the way for expedited construction of the border wall, of course, that the Biden administration was selling off for pennies on the dollar. Absolutely disgusting on that front. And he's reinstating the Remain in Mexico policy, which was beyond a common sense policy, considering the fact, and I have discussed this on multiple times, folks, that the concept of seeking asylum has to be based on the fact that you're running from something, that you need asylum, you need protection. And if you travel through multiple countries where they've all let you in and you could have stayed everywhere, and especially for those people that fled certain countries 10 years ago, they've been living their lives for the better part of a decade or maybe longer in another country, you're not seeking asylum, you're just seeking a better life. And those are the things that have to be warranted out, stamped out in the immigration trials. So staying in Mexico, which means you had to have, if you're not Mexican, of course, you had to have entered the Mexican border, right? You had to cross their southern border to travel through Mexico to get to the American border. Well, if they let you into Mexico, you've found your asylum. So it doesn't make any sense. This is Trump unrestrained, capitalizing on his renewed mandate, and it is a mandate. With a landslide victory, he has a mandate. When we all know what his policies are, we all know what he was going to do, and I'm going to bring that back up into these pardon things in a minute. To enact these policies, Americans have demanded for years. He has a clear mandate, instructions on what we want done. The United States is once again out of the Paris Climate Accord. Trump described it as a one-sided ripoff that hinders American industry, while China gets a free pass, India for that matter. He also issued a national energy emergency order, signaling an aggressive push to revive domestic oil and gas production, including drilling in Alaska. Now, for those keeping score, this is Trump doubling down on energy independence and rejecting globalist entanglements. Again, and I've covered this, I don't know how many times, oil has to be produced. And there's no country that produces oil cleaner than we do. There's no country that burns coal cleaner than we do. In this atmosphere that we live in, the oxygen we breathe, it's the same all over the planet, and it travels. And if we're the only country that's stopping or slowing down the burning of fossil fuels, while other countries that are doing it dirtier, and countries like China that are still opening coal plants today, and they intend to do so right through 2031. It takes less than 3 days for that air to be over the United States. So we're only handicapping our businesses, and we're better off to let our refineries do it in a cleaner way, not to mention the crude oil, by the way. What comes out of Venezuela is so tough as crude that we call it tar. And the only refineries on the planet that can actually clean it and refine it are in Texas. And tariffs are back in, right? With a steep 25% duties on Canadian Mexican imports starting in February 1st. Trump also rescinded the Biden-era global minimum corporate tax agreement, signaling a return to prioritizing American business over global economic alliances. And this is big. Trump talked about this. He lowered the corporate tax in his first term, which brought trillions of dollars back into America. And now he's talking about one corporate tax if you're based out of America, different corporate tax for those that aren't. And that's important. And that kind of a tax structure not only will bring back American corporations or keep them here, but it will bring foreign corporations here, which will create jobs here as well. And one of the most polarizing orders signed yesterday got federal DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI is DIE in a lot of these companies too, in the corporations. Trump labeled these initiatives as wasteful and discriminatory, focusing instead on what he calls true merit-based policies, meritocracy. In another significant move, Trump redefined federal recognition of sex and gender, reinforcing a binary framework that critiques and argues erased the transgender. He's saying that officially America will recognize two sexes. Now, he did say gender in the speech. The actual executive order says sexes. Genders do get a little squishy. But biologically, there's male and female. Love it or hate it, this is Trump reaffirming his commitment to cultural conservatism. And perhaps the most controversial act of the day was blanket pardons of over 1,500 individuals connected to the January 6th riots. Trump framed it as rectifying politically motivated persecution, a move that will undoubtedly fuel national debate. We're against the clock. We got to take our first break here on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We'll continue with this stuff. We'll go to the phones too. Dan, I know you're there and waiting, so stick with us, folks. We'll be back on the other side with segment 2 of the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti. Back in 10.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own, but MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Perner Logging and Land Clearing, fully equipped with state-of-the-art equipment to handle all of your lot and land clearing needs, whether it's 1 acre or 100. They regularly service customers in the local area and will travel to neighboring communities and beyond to get the job done. Now, whether you're doing new construction, renovations, or clearing land for a new development, the Perner Logging and Land Clearing team of experienced personnel makes small or large jobs run efficiently, giving them the ability to always keep the competitive edge. They'll quote your job from something small to hundreds of acres, factoring in all aspects, including the wood salvage value, if any. In addition, they have the right equipment for each size job, making for the most efficient job site possible. For every job, Perner Logging and Land Clearing make sure the client's goals are the main objective. Call Perner Logging and Land Clearing today for a free estimate, 978-270-9916. That's 978-270-9916.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second segment of the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and you can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Don't forget our text line. That's also running at 617-297-8388. And this is Radio Central. From the center of the dial in the center of New England, and of course, the center of information, AM 830 WCRN. Let's go to the phones. Dan has been waiting patiently. Dan, thank you so much for doing that. What say you? Did you get a chance to watch some of the ceremonies and balls and inauguration yesterday? Go ahead. Do we got Dan? Hello, Dan. Ted, I'm not hearing Dan come through.
Hello?
Oh, there we go.
Hello?
Hey, Dan.
Hello?
I got you, Dan. Go ahead.
Yes, great to talk to you. Like always, Joe. This is my favorite executive orders were the Paris Climate Accord and taking us out of the World Health Organization. I would love to see him do something about NATO and the UN, take us out of there, because that really, the thing about NATO and UN, especially the UN, our state, towns, and cities are entrenched around the country in the UN. That's a big problem. I know it is in New Hampshire. New Hampshire is really bad, and I'm sure it's in other states as well. And the other thing I was pretty upset about all these pardons, okay, like Liz Cheney and the other guy, Adam Kinzinger, the two Republicans. And then you also had Adam Schiff and Jamie Raskin and Liz Cheney as well. All three of them, those three are tied to the Ukraine money laundering, along with Nancy Pelosi, who picked the two Republicans on the January 6th committee, which should have been a Republican picking their own people. Yeah. It's unbelievable what's going on. And these people need to be exposed. They need to be taken out because, when you talk about Nancy Pelosi, she's worth like $290 million. It's unbelievable. They're so corrupt. And the thing is we need to expose we got 2 years to fix these elections around the country. This is why I attack rigged elections so hard. Yep. We are one election right back where we were. That's what people need to realize. And when you're looking, like I know New Hampshire, you can't change election laws without putting them on the ballot. This is my question today for you: is when Massachusetts, back before the 2020 election, they didn't have mail-in voting and early voting in Massachusetts. They did it in 2020 universally. The Democrats went to the courts and judges and changed election laws to mail-in voting and early voting prior to the November 3rd, 2020 election, and using the courts and judges, which violated state the constitutional laws of the state and the separation of powers. It made it an illegal election right there before the election even happened by violating the Constitution of the state. Now, if you look this up, Moore versus Hopper came. This is a Supreme Court ruling that came out on June 27, 2023, which set a precedent, okay, that would have helped President Trump on how election laws elections failed to follow the constitutional state election laws. That came out on June 27, 23. So Louisiana, Georgia, and Connecticut, those three elections were overturned after that. Okay, so we're starting to get some headway. Yeah. We just got to keep pounding it.
Absolutely, Dan. Thank you for your call. That I appreciate that. You touched on a lot there, and let's comment on some of it. First of all, getting to the WHO, World Health Organization, UN, NATO, all of that. Yes, this has always been a concern because under the Biden administration, he was going right along with the whole concept that the UN was going to be the enforcing agency when it came to pandemics and health crises, and the way it was written was very vague. And the Trump administration was going along with the idea that if the WHO, World Health Organization, which, let's face it, is pretty much controlled by China, even though America, we were giving 10 times the amount of money to the WHO than China was, is they could determine if something was a health crisis, and then if it was a pandemic, and then how to treat the pandemic, and that we were going to agree that whatever the UN said, that's how we would handle it in our own country, which meant the United Nations would be deciding any future jabs that you would again be forced to take and have to take. So that has always been scary. You jumped around over to the election laws. Yes, there's been some headway. And I go back to this, I've talked about this, because the left likes to spin it with that there were so many cases and they were all thrown out. Again, all right, the three cases, actually it might be four, I'd have to go double check now, that actually went forward and was successful, all had standing to do it. The cases that were thrown out when it came to election and the election fraud that was alleged, they were not heard because of lack of standing. And lack of standing in a proceeding just means the court said, you who is bringing this case forward don't have standing in the case. You have no legal reason to have a problem here. So we're not hearing the merit of the case. We're not hearing the argument. We're throwing it out on lack of standing. So to spin that, they try to make it sound like the arguments were put forth, the evidence was presented, and it wasn't bought by the court. That's not what happened in those. But yes, a lot of what President Trump is doing by executive order expected to be challenged. They already are being. Less than 24 hours, they were being challenged while they were being signed. Okay, everything is going to be challenged, which is why he needs the support of a united Congress in these first 2 years, because we don't, honestly, not only do we not know what the makeup will be of Congress come midterm, but even at the end of it, right, our margin, the Republican margin has even gone lower because he's been pulling these qualified people for cabinet positions, and that means there are special elections. Some of them can be by appointment in the Senate and so forth, but it's very dangerous that through the attrition of appointing people to take other jobs, the margin can go away, and God forbid be reversed. So until the dust settles, we don't know what the margin's going to be. And the House has got to come together to absolutely get the Trump agenda and all the policies and everything that he's pushing for and he wants to get through, have to get through in these 2 years, which is why he's wasting absolutely no time with this. Thank you again, Dan, for the call. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go back to the phones. Gary has been waiting patiently. Hey, Gary, what say you? How do I got you?
Regarding the pardons, now we all know that the president has the right to pardon. I've got two thoughts on this. One is there is nowhere in the Constitution that it says anything about a preemptive pardon. Mm-hmm. It says pardon, which to me, the word pardon means you committed a crime, which we know about, and we're going to pardon you. Yeah. The term preemptive pardon, that seems to me that's something that should be brought before the courts and challenged.
Right. And Gary, one thing, let's pause on that for a second, because I agree with you. Okay. This has never been done before. And I think my feeling is the Department of Justice should go ahead and follow the clues, follow the evidence. And if the evidence says there's a crime and this was committed, go ahead and let this be tested and let this go and let the defense be, I got a preemptive pardon. And let SCOTUS have to look at this and say, well, that's not actually outlined. Even though the power of pardon is absolute in the Constitution, preemptive pardons is not. And I think that that's a little shady, and I don't know if that would, withstand constitutional muster. So I would like the DOJ to go ahead and by pardoning somebody who has no crime, much less a conviction, it kind of says, I know that they have committed a crime, so I'm going to pardon them. I wouldn't want it because it screams you're guilty. So I think the DOJ should go ahead and prosecute these people if there is a crime there and let that kind of sort out, because this is setting a horrible precedence for future presidents too. Your other
exactly. Thought. I'd like to see how many governors actually have the power to sit and say, we're going to preemptively pardon somebody. I don't think a governor has ever done that. And the second thing is that, like you said, let's let the investigations go forward. Let's make sure that we find everything, and let's bring in Liz Cheney and Kinzinger and all the rest of them and make sure that they tell all their truth, because if they get caught lying, that pardon does not cover perjury. At this point, it does not cover perjury. So you make sure that you go after them and you ask them questions. And in the end, if it turns out that they're guilty of something, while you may not be able to, to do anything to them because of the pardon, you just do what the Democrats did: leak the report and say, "Oops, sorry, these people are guilty of sin, but there's nothing we can do about them." Then let's see Adam Kinzinger try to get another job ever. Liz Cheney don't have to worry about that. But let's just see him try and find himself employment when, it's out there that you were basically doing something highly illegal. There are certain certifications he wouldn't be able to get. He would never be able to get any sort of a top secret clearance ever again, which if he has one, I hope they've torn it away from him at this point.
Well, actually, and Gary, did you hear that? So, Gary, did you hear that Trump has revoked the security clearances of those 51 former intelligence agents that signed that letter about the earmarks of Russian collusion, which I go back to, why do these people allowed to keep these top clearances once they leave government employ? What reason? I mean, I know the reason. Exactly. It's so that they can get these big jobs, because if you have somebody on your board of directors or working for you with these big security clearances, then they get access to information you wouldn't. I get that. But that shouldn't be a reason. That's not good for the American people. That's not good for the country. And this administration is all about what is best for America. And once you obtain a top secret clearance or any, I mean, there's many levels of clearance, but once you receive any of those, that is because of the job that you had when you were an agent of the people, when you were an agent of the government. Once you leave government employ, what the hell do you need that for? It should be immediately revoked. Gary, we're against the clock. Thank you so much for your call. Greatly appreciated. Folks, stick with us for the second half of the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Stick with us, folks. Back in 2 and 10.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. We have got Arctic air ruling the forecast for the next couple of days. After wake-up temperatures in the single digits above and below zero, we'll see highs around 19 or 20 degrees both today and tomorrow. Now, today, clouds will increase. Overnight tonight, we're expecting a little bit of Cape snow, but otherwise the forecast remains dry. And tomorrow, it's all about the bitter, cold sunshine. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
Headline news, weather, and local information central to your day on Radio Central 830 WCRN.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own, but MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities face of Social Security.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. And you can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Don't forget the text line. That's up and running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. It appears on the screen here in the studio in real time, and we try to work it into the conversation. So a lot going on. We're just over the first 24 hours of the Trump second administration, and as we digest the first wave of executive orders, it is clear that Trump's second term will not be a repeat of his first. First of all, just the way people are looking at it, his experience and the fact that they were just blown away. And I'm looking at some of the talking heads on the left, and they still don't get it. Nobody can read the room. Nobody's taking a step back saying we're obviously missing something here. This is a president with a clear vision, a Republican majority in Congress, although very slim, it's still a majority, and an unapologetic commitment to advancing his agenda. Legal challenges will abound here, folks, and political resistance will be fierce. But Trump has made one thing clear. He intends to deliver on the promises that brought him back to power. So let's dive deeper into what this means for America and for each of us. In this, the dawn of the new era, or continuation of a divided one. So you can call in and let's unpack the policies, the implications, the controversies together. 508-871-7000 to do that. Let's go to the phones. Ken has been waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you? Hey, Ken.
The people have on the
there you go. Start over, Ken. I didn't catch your first part.
It's terrific on the third caller today.
Third caller. You got it. What say you? So did you did you have the chance to digest everything yesterday, watch everything? I really enjoyed the first ball, right? The commander-in-chief ball. He cut the cake with a sword and danced to YMCA with the sword. Melania looked fantastic. I thought her inauguration outfit was something. She reminded me a lot. Didn't she look kind of like the, you know, that movie Wonder Woman, Goodall there that plays Diana Prince? She had that look to me anyway. She had that kind of.
I don't remember.
Yeah, the hat she was wearing. Trump took made a joke. I'm sure he paid for that when he got home.
I think the hat was strategic just in case Biden got close.
It was hard for her to do the kiss on the cheek thing. Yeah.
Because Todd tried to peck a cheek and they couldn't get in there.
Yeah. Even Trump had trouble doing that. Yeah. Yeah. That lady is not a fool.
That's what
I'm saying. Yeah. So was it pretty much what you expected we were going to see on day one?
I didn't watch much yesterday because I was with grandchildren, and then there was sports that takes priority I like to watch, and then so I've been kind of picking up since. And I kind of like doing it that way on a big day. It's sort of like, all right, let's see what other people have to say, and then watch some video and digest over time. But to me, the focus is what Gary was just discussing: the preemptive pardons. That the left has to be pounded on that issue over and over and over again, because that's their number one issue, J6, and that was the one that was like, okay, I heard all these things happen. I heard that Cheney and Kinzinger he had pardoned the whole committee, the staffers, the people that testified that were found to give
false testimony.
Yeah. It's like, whoa, I think we hit a gold mine here, folks. Corruption, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. And here's the one thing that Ken, I need to make the observation here, because I know this morning, right, I'm watching the talking heads and getting this criticism because Trump went ahead and pardoned almost 1,600 J6. Here's the thing, though. The difference, folks, is Donald Trump was actually delivering on a promise at almost every rally, he said he was going to do that. It's not like that's a surprise. And he said, if you elect me, I'm not going to interfere with the January 6th, all them stand trial. But he said, look, a lot of these people, first of all, they did these sham trials, and then all of this like evidence, all these videos and documents that he's asked for preservation orders on have disappeared, which meant how can they get fair and justice with any kind of appeal? So Donald Trump doing the pardons yesterday for January 6th was literally him following through on a campaign promise, never a mistake. Joe Biden was absolutely lying the whole time. And if you go back to, I think it was December of 2020, while he was president-elect, he was asked about Trump making pardons on the way out. And of course, he blasted that saying, well, how does that make us look in the, to the world, to other nations watching this? It's really low ball and all this other stuff. And then look what he does. And when it comes to the family and some of these people, I mean, within the last 20 minutes of his administration, literally going out the door, waiting till Trump was actually on stage or speaking, so that Trump wasn't even aware of those 11th hour pardons, Ken, until after he came off of the stage and speaking. So he has, and maybe this was his last middle finger to the Democratic Party for what they did to him. I don't know. But he's taken the ability of the Democratic Party to have any claim to moral high ground here. And for what he's done, it has damaged the reputation of the office of presidency, and it just has finally killed his legacy. His legacy went from not having one to having a terrible one in what it's done. But yes, it also gives us a roadmap as to who the real bad actors are, doesn't it?
All great points. But to the extent that Gary was pursuing things that should be done, I'm not optimistic. I'm not optimistic of success in knocking down preemptive pardons through the Supreme Court. I agree with pursuing it, but I don't see any way Roberts or Coney Barrett go down that road, because the pardon power is rather clear. They literally
it's absolute. It really is. But don't you think that the fact that these are preemptive pardons, which is not mentioned in the Constitution, nor has it ever been done before, so we're not even sure that's a thing, because if you define what a pardon is, it's the forgiveness and make it as if it never happened, but something has to have happened. So is that even a thing? And I think that merits a legal debate, and a discussion. And I think that sooner than later, it needs to be done, so that then it is what it is going forward and for future administrations, so that future presidents can't pull that slimy move on the way out the door. So I think that the DOJ needs to go ahead, and regardless of the fact that these preemptive pardons are sitting there, they have to follow the evidence. And if there is evidence of a crime, then you prosecute the crime. You don't, unlike the Biden administration, show me the man, I'll show you the crime, but follow the evidence. And if it turns out that the person who committed these crimes got one of these preemptive pardons, then let that be the defense and let it get argued. It has to be.
Second thing people are claiming is, hey, now, and you've mentioned this in the past, now bring the Faucis and the others to testify in front of Congress, and they don't have Fifth Amendment protections. All true, but they can always say, I can't recall. And that's exactly what they're going to do. You're never going to get them to say what really happened.
Well, the question becomes, but none of these people, and we won't beat this to death, but anything that these people are guilty of, most of it, if not all of it, was not done in a vacuum. So there are other people, and I mean, he couldn't blanket pardon or anyone who might be sucked into this. In other words, some people, when you start digging here, and when you get the records going and you do an actual investigation that's not hindered by superiors telling you you can't go there, otherwise your career's over. If they let investigators do what they do, they will find emails and documentation. And yes, it might clearly show the guilt of Fauci and other people that we're talking about. But there's going to be people who weren't pardoned involved in there. And so how much collateral damage is there? Again, though, and Ken, I say this, I think the question has to be answered. Is preemptive pardons a thing? Is it a loophole? Is it a thing? Are they real? They're not specifically outlined in the Constitution. You know why? Because our founding fathers couldn't even comprehend the idea of some slimy politician doing a preemptive pardon to protect his family from 5 decades of corruption. And all of and I think it was Gary or whoever brought up the fact that when you look at the people involved, you're looking at the people who based on evidence that Comer and so forth has turned up with bank records and tracking, seems to have been making quite a bit of grift off of the whole Ukrainian war anyway, right, out of that whole thing. So now you got to say, how big is this? How far reaching? And how much money actually ended up bouncing back to the United States from taxpayer money going over there?
And I guess you could dig some information out of those who haven't been preemptively pardoned.
And in some cases, so you grant immunity, like any prosecutor does, Ken, right? To get, hey, all right, we're going to grant you immunity here, so you can't be charged. You don't have to Fifth Amendment anymore, so go ahead. You have to tell the truth under oath. Not everybody's going to pull the I don't recall line, especially when they refreshed with, well, here's your email written at 3 a.m. on this day, saying that this was actually gain of function or on that one, or that this was actually man-made, no question about it. And then what about the bank records? And then when Joe Biden talks about the oligarchies, it's hysterical. You talk about the oligarchies that you're familiar with, the ones that have been funding the Biden crime family for all these years. We're actually against the clock, Ken. Final word. I got a break for the third and final break. Good. All right, Ken. Thank you for the call. Got it. All right, Ken. Thank you for the call, folks. We're going to take a third and final break here on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Stick with us. Tyler, I see you on the phone. When we come back, we'll go right to the phone lines, folks.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. The MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
For the first time ever.
Polar Park is the place to play, so treat yourself to a private suite at the best ballpark in AAA. Suite rentals are the best way to enjoy a fully catered and climate-controlled experience at the park. Whether you choose to watch the game from inside of the suite or out in your seats, it's the ultimate experience for a special occasion. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to reserve your suite today.
Enjoy sitting down with your family for an Italian home-cooked meal? A trip to Ziti's is just like that, every time. The smells and tastes of true time-tested Italian recipes, the best in Italian cuisine, served by some of the nicest people you will ever meet. Ziti's fine Italian cooking is a favorite in Metro West at Turnpike Road in Westboro. Every meal at Ziti's is one you will remember. Head on down to Ziti's. All the best food Italy has to offer right here in your backyard.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. And I just want to say that Biden's last-minute wave of preemptive pardons marked a shocking use of presidential power, granting clemency to 5 family members and high-profile figures such as General Mark Milley, whose portrait was removed 11 days after being put up, by the way. And my understanding, based on reports, is when the workers were asked who gave the order, it was above their pay grade, but they were told to make it look like it never even existed. Also, to people like Dr. Anthony Fauci, Biden framed the move as a defense against politically motivated vengeance. Yeah, Biden's saying that, right? From the incoming Trump administration. While Biden claimed these individuals had done no wrong, the act undermined the moral high ground Democrats often claim that they occupy, but the pardons extended beyond his family to encompass figures like Liz Cheney and members of the January 6th committee, creating a perception of self-protection rather than justice. The optics of these pardons raise serious questions about the erosion of accountability and the potential misuse of executive clemency. Notably, Biden's actions contradicted his early criticisms of Trump, who he accused of contemplating pardons for his family. By doing precisely what he once decried, Biden stripped his party of credibility and handed Republicans a potential political weapon. Biden's actions set a dangerous precedent, weaponizing the pardon power to shield allies and families from potential scrutiny. Critics from both parties expressed dismay with refusing to accept pardons out of principle. Former Representative Adam Kinzinger and Senator Adam Schiff highlighted the troubling precedent of blank pardons, which appear to undermine the rule of law and public trust in government. Meanwhile, Trump's approach to the January 6 pardons underscores his commitment to addressing what he sees as politically motivated prosecutions. And while these are controversial, these pardons were openly discussed throughout his campaign, aligning with his narrative of fighting for Americans he believes are unfairly targeted. He told us almost at every rally that he was going to do this, so we knew long before being sworn in yesterday that within a very short time of assuming the Oval again, those pardons were coming. Unlike Biden, who lied to us repeatedly and who criticized Trump at the end of his first term, for the potential of doing the slimy move that he actually did. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Let's go to the phones. Tyler has been waiting patiently. Hey, Tyler, what say you? Hey, Tyler.
Well, Trump cut the cake. Hey, Joe, how are you, bud?
Good, man. What say you?
Well, it's self-evident. You said it. I said it. A whole bunch of people said it. You have to look at essence. And essence is most diabolical and schematic design. You accuse your enemy of what you do. Then you arrest everybody involved, which are going to be released from prison. But you have to delete all the evidence because there's too much of a trail. It's called the looming matter. The beauty of this is you've got all this documented audio. The video can be deleted, but the audio's in court. But far bigger, you've got hundreds of people that were manipulated. They call them a disconnect. They get used, and then they get discarded. When you add their testimony to the so-called video that they have the audio of in court, and the other thing is people don't go into this business of enforcement to undermine, backstab, and betray. However, if you can intimidate and cohesively create what you call collateral coverage, you have a cover-up. But people are sick of it and will talk. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to come out. Like you said, he said he was going to do this. Of course, they had sham trials. A lot of those people thought they were just going there to walk. And if you use a few fire starters and paid mercenaries, you create internal, external, and global calamity and sell weapons and rebuild contracts. It's a huge waste, abuse, and it's disgusting. And people are going to start becoming more aware of it because, as you and I both knew ahead of time, this for them was an unprecedented denial and rejection of the establishment. And they hammered him and illegally, wrongfully, and wrong district prosecuted him. And like he said, this stuff's going to get reined in. I can't wait to see the results.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this, what he did on the way out was in total, it was against the spirit of pardons, against what's defined there, which is why I'm saying that it needs to be, the investigations need to happen. And even to the point, because after all, how can you pardon somebody for a crime that they haven't committed? So let's oblige them and charge them with the crimes. And let's see if the court goes ahead and upholds that. Because again, this isn't a thing, folks. Preemptive pardons isn't a thing. They haven't existed. So what he's done, I think, is a total violation of the spirit of the law, total violation of the trust, and it has absolutely chipped away at the integrity of the office of the presidency. And even though the power of pardon is absolute in the Constitution, there's nothing about giving these blanket pardons. And it's going to be interesting. I think everything that Trump has done in the last 24 hours, for most of it's going to be challenged right away. The lawsuits are already being brought, and that's the way it works. And that's why a lot of what he's doing, Tyler, it's going to have to be done through Congress as well. He can do a lot by executive order, but just like Biden did to him and he did to Biden, he can reverse most things and the next guy can reverse. And we can't be guaranteed that the next 10 presidents are all going to be MAGA. So, Congress has got to bite the bullet on some of this stuff and do some of these executive orders via legislative action as well.
Correct. And Joe, there's a simple point of trial and error, hit and miss. For example, saying that the children born here of undocumented cannot have citizenship. That's in the Constitution. However, based upon what Trump recognizes as a national security crisis, look at the damn numbers. Look at Lincoln Riley. Look at Bridges County, Maryland, the shootouts. Look at the numbers. I have friends that personally lived in Colorado where they took over the entire apartment complex. It really is hell on wheels.
Yeah.
Under declaration of national emergency with overwhelming evidence, you amend the Constitution.
And the thing on that, though, I want to go back to the birthright there, because one could argue, and again, these are for much more legally scholarly people than me, and it's for the court to listen to. But yes, what the Constitution does say is just because people who aren't citizens of the United States, if their child is born here, that child becomes a citizen. But one could argue under the legal definitions here, if you are legally here, just like the fruit of the tree, if you are legally here, are you actually here? So if you were here illegally to begin with, whatever actions you take here are by definition illegal and not necessarily have to be recognized. So one could argue, if you're here on a visa and you're legally here and your child is born here, of course they're a citizen. But one could argue that if you were legally here, therefore not recognized by the law, therefore not recognized by the government, and your child is born here, we don't have to recognize that as a citizen childbirth, if you follow my thought process here. Now, if you come here and you're pregnant and you actually went to the border, and this is a whole nother argument about, the legality of reporting, but if we've acknowledged that you're here and you've been given an order to report or an order to appear, we've acknowledged your existence. You are in the country about a very thinly veiled legally, but you are legally here. Now, if you have a child now, maybe that child should be recognized as a citizen. But I would argue that there's a good argument to say, if you are born to parents who have never been here legally, therefore they don't exist here legally, then maybe your claim to birthright citizenship is in question. All I'm saying is that deserves.
Right. It's called.
Go ahead.
Right, Joe. It's called sin Q non. It's just stupid 3 Latin words for if not this, there would not be that.
Yeah.
If you go to a place illegally and you engage in a crime, you're going to be found guilty. They are here not of legal status. Therefore, the baby is not what you call under warranted in coverage or indebted to their illegal status. And there's something called non pro tunc. It's the inherent power of the court to set the record straight. And believe me, Joe, these are individual cases. When this couple is working and helping at a school and doing daycare, they're going to stay. It's the cruds, the criminals, the creeps, and the degenerates, and the miscreants that were put upon our society like a scourge. They have to go. They use the shipping app. Now, 13,000 have minor criminal records, and over a double that had serious violent crimes. It's no joke what happened, and that's going to be looked at independently. And the damn president of Mexico telling them don't answer the door for ICE. Go ahead, don't answer the door. But when you come outside, you're accessible, and the president should help, not hurt.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole other discussion there about where the president of Mexico's loyalties lie and so forth. But Tyler, thank you for the call. We're against the clock. Always appreciate it. All right, folks, we're coming up to the end of the Tuesday edition, the day after the inauguration. Again, against the clock, I did want to get into the efficiency over ideology, the rise of the Department of Doge. Rumor has it now that Vivek Ramaswamy might be departing from Doge to head off to Ohio to run for the governorship there. That could be something that we see happen. And the inauguration of President Trump marked the beginning of a significant shift in governance. And one of the most groundbreaking moves was, in fact, the creation of the Department of Efficiency, Doge. Led by entrepreneur Elon Musk, this agency wasted no time in delivering on its mission to streamline federal operations and eliminate wasteful spending. The closure of the Chief Diversity Officer Executive Council, the CDOEC, within hours of Trump taking office, signaled a clear departure from previous priorities, focusing instead on pragmatic governance. But folks, that does wrap up the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. Thank you for coming by. Follow me on social media at Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. But that's it. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock for the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti on AM 830 WCRN. Joe out.